Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Recently, I began to hear a lot about some very strange things. And by the way, there are strange things that are happening right in my home state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, especially where I live in the Poconos, has often been sort of a hotspot for Sasquatch sightings. But recently, I think things took a turn for even stranger things, because apparently all over Pennsylvania, there have been a recent wave of what can only be described as sightings of dogmen or a dogman-like creature. So joining us tonight will be Lon Stricker, who is incredible. We had him here talking about all the Mothman sightings. And what Mr. Stricker does is very interesting. He compiles reports, he takes reports, and then he has these sort of maps where he maps these sightings. And we saw examples of that with the Mothman situation. People were seeing large humanoid, apparently winged creatures. So he collects the reports. And by the way, I just want to make sure we understand that, everybody knows how skeptical I am. So, but one of the things that intrigues me about these dogman sightings is what you'll understand when you see the map. Like, why are so many people in these certain areas seeing a dogman-like creature, and what could be the cause of this? And now I want to explore all possibilities, including misidentified. Maybe they're black bears or black bears with mange, or other, regular wildlife. Maybe they're feral dogs. But based on some of the descriptions and the pictures that people are drawing of this, it gets stranger and stranger. I don't know what's happening. So I decided what I would do is consult with one expert that I know is an expert on these cryptid sightings. So we're just going to bring him right in here, and we're going to jump right in and get started right away. Welcome, Mr. Stricker.
Just call me Lon, Stephen.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah. Thanks for having me in there.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I know you, because I started hearing, I didn't hear these things first from you, but you have a Facebook group. Can you tell us about that first? And I saw you posting about this on your Facebook group.
Yeah, I have several Facebook groups I'm a part of, but I do my blog every day if I can, and anything I get gets reposted to a lot of the groups and my groups that want me to go ahead and repost this stuff. So yeah, I got a pretty good following over there, and other social media as well. But that's all part of the game, and if it's the best way to get your information. And of course, a lot of people report a lot of different things, and you got to be skeptical to a degree. But when I do take a report from somebody, I always give them the benefit of the doubt until I prove otherwise. So I just listen to them, take the report, and then we go from there. Then my team and I do have a pretty good sized team. We're all throughout North America. I got about 20 individuals that boots on the ground that we actually go and do investigations, as well as 35 other parent.
Yeah, and that's rare
other
today.
Affiliates and paranormal groups.
Yeah, that's rare today, because most people do what I call right-click research. In other words, if it's not on the internet, they can't find it. So I really value and respect this boots on the ground stuff. And when I see that some of these dogman reports are literally right in my backyard, they're right close to my house, some of them. So I want to get out there and see what the hell is it. What is it that people are seeing? Because listen, it's just kind of bizarre. Like, I can understand a Bigfoot sighting, but when it gets to something like a dogman, first of all, can you give us some general history on dogman sort of lore and mythology and the sightings and things like that? Maybe give us some background into the dogman sightings.
Yeah, historically, and most of the people who came to the New World from Europe and such, they had a bit of cryptid canine lore, werewolves and such. And, it was something to fear when they lived in the old world. But when a lot of them moved here, and even stories that were told to them by the native people, there was apparently something roaming the woods, and they didn't know what it was. And quite frankly, in Pennsylvania, it was kind of the place where most of these farmers from Germany and Switzerland and such moved. They were very aware of the lore from the old country, and they were very reticent of what these things or what people were seeing. And most in particular, it didn't really start very much until probably the mid 1800s, where a lot of the Amish and a lot of the old German farmers started moving out of Pennsylvania. They had originally moved into Lancaster and started buying cheaper land down in Maryland, and down into areas of Maryland south of Gettysburg, going west down into Frederick County and such. They started realizing that there was some type of canine out there that wasn't a wolf. It wasn't, of course, coyotes weren't around. They weren't that far east at that time, and these things were huge, and it reminded them a lot of the lore that was going on in the old country. The name that they started associating with these things was the Dwayyo. That was really what they were calling it at the time, and a lot of these sightings were documented. But as time went on, and as they started moving further west and up into central Pennsylvania, then the sightings started to pop up in areas that had not been, had been wilderness, and they were in there. Companies were going in there and cutting trees down. And Pennsylvania is pretty interesting because it was virgin territory when the settlers came here, but Pennsylvania was pretty close to being devoid of the trees by the mid 1800s.
Sylvania means woods, right? So
yeah,
it's William Penn's woods. That's
and
Penn's woods. Yeah, so that they came in and they logged a great portion, even back in the day. I know that they logged. And what's interesting is I bought some land in the Poconos that I thought, this is weird. Like, I'm walking around this whole woods. It's miles and miles of nothing but woods. And I'm walking around these woods, and it's all young trees. Like, there were no really big trees. So I did some historical research, and what I found out is 110 years ago, that whole area for miles was clear cut. They just came in and they cut every tree down and hauled them off. And in fact, the road that my land is on, it's not even a road. It's an old logging trail. So yeah, they would cut whole square mile areas of woods. They would just chop everything down, and then they would haul it to Philadelphia, where everybody was building homes.
Yes.
And other places, Pittsburgh and the major population centers. But all the wilderness areas, were getting exploited for the timber.
Yeah. Yeah, they were, and the wildlife was leaving, or they were hunting it down. Pennsylvania was pretty devoid of forest, and there were very few virgin forests. That's why a lot of the places in Pennsylvania are being protected as wilderness, because those are areas that weren't touched. Mm-hmm. So, but now Pennsylvania has approximately 55% woods now, are forest. So, it's almost like everything came back, and then when, everything started growing, then these animals or these creatures started repopulating, either coming south or coming east. And that's when, of course, the Native American knew about these beings, but
was there Native American legends of dogmen in the woods?
Yeah, so there were a few.
Bigfoot. Yeah, so it's not like Bigfoot, that there's some mythology that goes back to the First Nations or Native Americans. Yeah, that's interesting, because I always think there's got to be a little bit of truth in a myth. There's got to be
all legend has a little bit of truth to it.
Yeah.
But they started seeing these creatures, and like I said, down in Maryland, they were calling them the Dwayah. And the whole Dogman phenomena really didn't start taking off until maybe about 20 years ago. I don't know what the reason was. I guess it's just like any other cryptid sighting. People are just, fearing being ridiculed if they reported something. But over the past couple of years, now I really started looking deeper into this phenomenon around 2013. Of course, I had other investigations and such. Occasionally have a sighting, but my partner and I got really deep into it. And these at this point now, since 2013, we have accumulated 37 sightings in Pennsylvania that we believe are legitimate sightings.
Yeah, I was looking at the map, which I'll share in a minute, because I am very interested in being a computer science guy. I like the data, and the way that Lon does this is very interesting. Here we can see Phantoms and Monsters 40 in research, Pennsylvania lichen investigations reports received. And not only does he show you where the sightings were, but there's so here we have one is bipedal canine eating roadkill. That was one of the sightings, right? And then you have a description of each.
We have a link to the report.
Oh, that's interesting. Let me get that, and we'll see which way you sort of report them. Yeah, so this is interesting. And this is the second sighting of a bipedal wolf encountered northwest Clearfield County, PA. That's great. I saw a werewolf. Hello, I live in a small town called Penfield in Clearfield County, PA. This encounter happened last July of this last year, 2015. Driving home from work on Boy Scout Road in Penfield. I usually stick to the main roads when driving home, but sometimes take back roads. So he slammed his foot onto the gas pedal and didn't let off the gas until I reached my home after he saw what he saw. As I was coming around the bend, I saw a large brownish tan creature crouching at the side of the road. I slowed down to get a better look. That's when it turned its head towards my vehicle. It had a large head and yellowish glow to its eyes and a long nose. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was eating roadkill, I believe a deer. So that's very interesting. And that's an older sighting, though. You said that there are some much more recent sightings on this map.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a
lot of this is what's crazy to me. Like, you got I'm struggling there. What is that? 40 sightings?
37.
37 sightings of bipedal dog-like creature. Gruesome cryptid canine, 8-foot upright cryptid canine, massive upright canine, attacks eyewitness. That's interesting. So sometimes these things attack people, according to witnesses?
Well, they will bluff charge people. I mean, they usually stand their ground, but they have been known to bluff charge. And of course, if you see a huge upright canine taking a step towards you, you're going to run. And first thing you think is this thing's going to try to grab me. But no, we've had some very interesting sightings over the years. And in fact, I do have one that the one had gruesome cryptid canine encountered in Berks County, Pennsylvania, which really isn't that far from you. It's actually near Birdsboro, which is near Reading, at the French Creek State Park. And the gentleman who actually had that encounter is now on my team, and he is constantly working this case. It occurred back in April 30th of 2022 in the Birdsboro Preserve. It's an area just north of French Creek State Park. And
I know exactly where that is. Yeah, I know. Exactly
I imagine you probably do. And he said it was a crystal clear, warm spring day, and he and his 12-year-old daughter wanted to learn. She wanted to learn how to trout fish. So they decided to go up to Hay Creek, which runs about 13 miles through the the French Creek State Park and through the Birdsboro Preserve. So they parked in the area where you're allowed to park at. They hiked up the old post road to the still active larger quarry, which continued about a half mile past it. And they found a spot where she could practice wading in the stream. It was safe enough, shallow enough. And they said there was a lot of people walking around, hiking, horseback riding that day, not a cloud in the sky. So he said they fished the area for about 2 hours as they were slowly moving back downstream. And at one point, while they were sitting on the bank, and they heard a loud crashing sound. And he said it sounded like a tree falling over behind them. So he said it was a bit strange because he didn't hear any chainsaws or anything, something cutting it down. So it was a few hundred feet behind them, but it was super loud, he said. And being an avid outdoorsman, he said it was kind of out of place. So it was totally different from a tree falling over and then just silence. He said it went on for about 2 minutes. He said he stood up and looked around in the direction that the sound had come from, but he saw it. He didn't see anything. So he just thought it was a bit strange and how it just instantly stopped them. He said about 30 minutes later, they heard the same thing again, and it went on for like 2 minutes more, and now he's puzzled. He doesn't know what to think. So he told his daughter, he said...
Well, let me interrupt you for a second. So
sure.
Being an avid outdoorsman, he knows what a bear looks like in the woods, right? So this
absolutely.
This wasn't a bear. He was sure it wasn't a bear.
Yeah. He knows his wildlife. I mean, I've been around this guy enough to know, and he's very scientific minded as well. And so he said to his daughter to start heading back downstream, find another spot. He still didn't see anything unusual, but he was on alert. I mean, he felt, it was probably a deer or something making noise. He didn't know. So then he heard a giant crashing through the woods. And this time it was very loud again, and it was definitely closer to them. And he said they walked about 200 yards down the trail, and they started hearing it again, and it was getting closer.
Well, that's
he
creepy.
said we stopped and looked up towards the quarry in the direction of the sound, but still saw nothing. He said that he told his daughter to cross the stream and fish down around the bend. And the spot where you cross the stream is about 30 feet wide and very slippery. So we took it slow, and we got about halfway across, and said all hell broke loose after that. He said with the sound of tree branches breaking again. He said it took us about 90 seconds to cross the stream because of being slippery. He was holding her hand and trying to make sure she didn't fall in. And he said the whole time the sound's going on, he's looking back. He didn't see anything. So they're about 20 foot below the quarry where the old bridge was. And they were up by a 6 to 7 foot berm to step up onto the road level. And when they got up there, he helped his daughter up, and he said, out of his peripheral vision, he saw something. He said the distance and the sound were coming from about 40 foot of a 40-foot pine tree on top of the quarry, and it was swaying violently side to side.
So this thing was shaking trees?
He said this pine tree was shaking up higher, about 5 foot back and forth. And he said he pointed to his daughter and said, "Holy crap, what the hell is that thing?" He'd look, and the next 40 to 50 seconds, he said, would change his life forever. He said what we were doing, we were watching the pine tree shake for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then he saw what he thought was an arm reaching out of the tree. He said it grabbed a bird, which he think was a turkey buzzard, and all of a sudden this thing jumps from the pine tree to a big oak tree about 10 feet away and starts climbing on the outside of the canopy. He said it pivoted around
weird.
somewhat like a spider on top of a canopy and disappeared into the branches of the large oak tree. Now, he said it was in April, so keep in mind the leaves are just starting to bud in the trees, and he said he can see movement in tree branches. He said this was about 200 to 300 feet away. He said the whole time branches are breaking, large branches 2 inches thick or so, and he said it goes on for about 10 more seconds. And he said then this thing jumps out of the tree. Now, he said these trees are at least 40 foot high, plus it falls another 15 to 20 feet into a 60-degree incline of rocks. So about 60 feet or so, this thing fell. He said, I thought it was dead. He said, I'll never forget the sound of the impact.
He thought it fell out of the tree. And isn't it interesting? So this guy, after this experience, he started becoming a cryptid hunter, kind of like people who have a UFO sighting and get obsessed with UFOs, and they start becoming investigating, they go investigate other UFOs. Is he trying to get to the truth of the mystery that he experienced, right?
Well, I think he's trying to get over the shock, first of all. He said this thing hit the ground super hard and rocks were flying down the side of the quarry incline at least 10 feet. And he said when it fell out of the tree, it landed on all fours. He said this thing was lying flat and looked a bit dazed or winded. Then it stands up bipedally on its two hind legs and is about 10 to 12 feet in height. Now, he said, I'm thinking that this thing should be dead because I'm thinking bear, mountain lion, Bigfoot. He didn't know what to think it was. He says, so this thing stands up from being on all fours and jumps like a toad or a frog does. He said the thing clears 20 feet of ground in total, not even trying, as well as jumps in height about 8 to 10 feet in one jump. He said now it was back on all fours again, flat like a frog, and then dropped this bird that it had in his left hand. Keep in mind, this thing landed facing away from us on the right side of us with its back to us and running away parallel to our left. It then reaches out with its left hand and grabs the bird and pulls it back to its chest. So the arms of this thing are at least 6 foot plus in length, he said. It had human-like hands and legs. And that sketch I gave you of the spotted creature, that's the sketch that he drew of this thing. And he said the hands had at least 2 to 3 inch claws on the fingers as well as the feet.
Okay, yeah.
He says as it grabbed the bird, it turned its. Okay. He said it turned. It grabbed the bird and its head to the side and saw this. He said, I then saw the side of its head and face. He said the thing was bald from the neck up. It had a canine-style snout or nose with an upper jaw, with an overhang with a very long teeth like fangs, like you'd see on a werewolf. No joke about it. And he was really dead serious about this. I talked to this guy 3 or 4 times before I even took his report. He said this thing, when it stood up from heel to hip, was 6 to 7 feet in height. And from hip to shoulder was another 3 feet. From heel to top of its head was 10 to 13 feet easy. He said the head was like a human head, but had pointed ears like a dog's, but not on top of the head. It had ears where a human has them, but longer and pointed. It had fur like a deer in length, very short, brown, gray, and black. The skin was gray in color. This creature was very skinny, though, like it was starving and not healthy. Very skinny, except the forearms and his legs were very toned, very muscular, and it didn't have a tail.
Yeah, and you mentioned this sighting was in 2022, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does this guy think to take out his phone and take any pictures or videos or anything, or does he just kind of shock?
This is a question I get all the time. Look, I gotta
ask, Ron.
No, I know, but I'm going to give you.
I would want a picture. I would want a picture so that my friends
absolutely, and I get this all the time.
Yeah,
and you got to put yourself in the person's point of view. They got
Sure.
their kid with them. They're don't know what the hell they're looking at. Usually, I think the last thing I would think of, now I don't know how he would think, was to grab a phone out of my pocket and try to take a picture of it. You know, it's just like all these sightings we've had in Chicago with the Mothman. You know, we've had 160 sightings and very few pictures taken, let alone very discernible pictures. So it's not really something that's conducive to seeing, getting over the shock, and trying to get the phone out to take pictures while this thing's moving around. It's it's just not conducive to having that done, to doing that.
Well, I guess that's fair, but the other thing I thought is, in my younger days, Lon, I did a lot of psychedelics, mushrooms, LSD, all kinds of things, and I would see weird shit in the woods because that's usually where I did the psychedelics. But given that this guy was like out on a fishing trip with his daughter, he wasn't on any kind of mushrooms or psychedelics when this happened. What was he?
No.
And how old was the daughter? And does she corroborate his general testimony or story?
Yeah, she did. She saw it too. She's young. I think she was about 7 or 8, something like that.
Did you interview her separately from him, or?
I talked to her as well. Yeah,
that's interesting. So we have two witnesses.
We have 2 witnesses. So anyway, and this guy, he doesn't seem to get shook that easy. But he said this thing scared the crap out of him. And he said, I'm standing there completely frozen with fear, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened. He said after about 2 minutes of sheer confusion, he snapped out of the fear factor and was now the adrenaline survival mode kicked in. He said, my number one concern was my daughter and us getting out of there alive because this thing ran the same way we had come from the car. So now keep in mind, this was a busy day with people out there being cooped up all winter because, people had just started getting out after COVID and everything. And whatever this thing is, violent, super strong to the point that, he actually started warning people as he was walking back to his car and asking them what this, if they saw anything. He said his daughter was confused and she didn't know what was going on. He was really concerned about her. And he did pull his phone out and he called 911. But as he called 911, he's thinking, they're not going to believe me. They are not going to believe me. He just thought it's just no sense me even doing that. So after he got back, now he lives in Boyertown, if you know where that's at. So he's fairly nearby. And so the thing he told me was, he said, I never really believed in cryptids. I never believed in any of that stuff, he said, but these things are 1,000% real. And he said, and I'm telling you now, this guy is obsessed with this sighting of his. He is still out there investigating what he saw. And he's using all kinds of scientific data and everything, weather, geology, maps, all kinds of stuff. He's very scientific minded. And so, of course, he talked to me and my team about it, my team here in Pennsylvania. And we have been looking into it. And in fact, we have, this Pennsylvania is just rife with a lot of different sightings of a lot of different things. So we're pretty busy. But we still had no idea what this is. Now, the one thing I will state is, you've seen the sketch of this thing. This is not uncommon, the way this thing looked as opposed to some of the descriptions we get, because we do get a lot of different descriptions of these creatures. But for the most part, most of the quadrupeds, those that are on 4 legs, which I refer to as the Dogman, they look kind of hyenish like, and this creature kind of looked hyenish like. And when I say that, I'm talking.
If there's sightings of creatures on four legs, I mean, couldn't it just be a big dog that's feral or wild
the
dog,
size and the nature of them, the way the musculature of these creatures, the slope back, the head that doesn't look hyena-like. It looks more like a wolf, but it looks like a wolf with a hyena body. And I have had several examples of people seeing these creatures. Now, of course, we've also had what we call the upright canines, bipedal canines, or lichens, which are mostly on two legs, but they're very big. I mean, they're huge. Anywhere from 8 to 10 foot in height. Not aggressive per se, but they do stand their ground. They also have the ability, and what it was like infrasound, or have the ability to be able to connect with the person who is seeing them, like you would hear with Bigfoot. It's almost like they have the ability to warn people off before they take action. And many times hunters who are armed run across these things. And I haven't had a hunter take a shot yet at it. And if they did, and I didn't hear about it, maybe they did and didn't live to tell. But I'm just saying, we do have a lot of hunters who have had encounters with these creatures.
Yeah, but I would think that, you often hear that hunters encounter a Bigfoot. There's a lot of sightings like that. And you often hear this sort of like, it was too man-like, so I didn't want to shoot it. But in this circumstance, especially, I can only relate to my own experience. But if that had happened to me and I was in the woods with my son, I would have shot it. I would have shot it, like, just to protect my son. It makes, Yeah. But you're getting all these reports and you're trying to rule out prosaic explanations. I know that you at least try to rule out the prosaic explanations. But have you drawn any conclusions about what you think all these people are seeing? Is this like a real flesh and blood, real creature that's out in the woods somewhere? Or is this like...
as far as I can tell, and from the evidence that we have collected, look, just like Bigfoot, there's very little physical evidence. And I'll admit to that. There's very little physical evidence. I don't, when I talk to you about our investigation in Chicago with the Mothman or winged humanoid creature, I told you at the time I thought there's a good possibility that it was an interdimensional being. In other words, it was living on a linear dimension and coming in through some type of portal, because I had so many individuals and witnesses saying that these things would suddenly appear and then suddenly disappear at some point. These cryptid canines, on a couple occasions, the same thing has been reported, where they were literally manifest, like out of thin air. So, do I know what they are? No, and I'll admit to that. And I'm not going to sit here and try to convince anybody otherwise. All I can do at this point is take the reports, do as much investigation I can with it, put it out there for the public, and let them determine what they think it really is. I can come up with theories, but quite frankly, that's my opinion.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well,
so,
I'm just asking your opinion. I mean, you know more about
this absolutely.
Than most people,
I get it.
So. Someone was asking for the invitation to our Discord server, and for those unaware, that is a chat room of sorts and forum that you can visit. If you enjoy these live chats that we do during the live broadcast, you will enjoy that. The invitation link is now pinned in the description, or pinned in the live chat. So you can just use that link to join our Discord. The link expires, however, so do so, in the next day or two. I don't know I think the link expires in a couple of days or something like that, which is why I don't have it pinned in every episode, in every about or whatever here, because the links expire and then people email me, the link doesn't work. And so this gentleman who had this encounter that you have described in detail here, he's now running around looking for Dogman. Like, does he spend a lot of time doing this? You said he's obsessed, right?
He's kind of obsessed with it, but I kind of understand it to a degree. I've had encounters with things I can't explain, and I may not be as obsessed by it, but I think this thing scared him enough that he really wonders what it was he encountered. And that's not unusual. When people experience something like that, or anything that's unexplained, it can get to a point where they become so obsessed that they want to find out more about it.
Yeah. And, what's funny, Lon, so many people are here because of some experience they had, are here in like UFO land or cryptid land or conspiracy land or paranormal land, whatever you want to call this thing. I saw something when I was a child, and that got me down the rabbit hole, and I've been stuck here ever since. But what the funny thing is the longer I'm here, the more I finally have admitted to myself. There was a time when I thought, and especially, Lon, I started this show, and my previous audio podcast, The Midnight Hour, I started doing this because I was sure if I could just talk to these experts, I could figure out what it is that I saw. And here we are years later, and I finally admitted to myself rather recently, like, I'm never going to know what it was, and I'm never going to get any answers. I'm just going to keep going down endless rabbit holes of other people's experiences or other strange or paranormal happenings, but it's still worthy of investigation, I guess. So this gentleman's spending all this time. You said, yeah, I guess you can get obsessed very easily, wanting,
absolutely.
Like a desperate need to, like me. I had a desperate need to know what it is I saw. I bought every book, I watched every documentary, I did research into, historical sightings, trying to figure this thing out. Some things, I guess, are just meant to remain a mystery, though. And something like a Dogman or a Bigfoot is just kind of so infused with legend, that it's hard to separate it into something scientific or something more physical or real, or, that you can get answers from.
I'm probably just as obsessed because, look, I've been doing this for 45 plus years now. And I started out when paranormal investigations and cryptozoology were
barely existed.
People would just laugh at you. Yeah, they'd laugh at you. And I'm at a time when people would see shows like In Search Of and such like that, and they were questioning everything. And when you'd tell somebody you were a paranormal investigator, or you were interested in cryptids, or you had a Bigfoot encounter or something to that degree, you always got that funny look, like,
you're a wackadoo.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, you're a wackadoo.
Yeah, and I still occasionally get it. But the whole genre has become more mainstream over the years.
I think it's been popularized by all the paranormal shows and the UFO shows and Ancient Aliens, and even though some loser star of Ancient Aliens is threatening to get me arrested and suing me, I don't like that show or anybody on it. But yeah, I'm sure you're right that, like, back, I remember In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. It used to be on the VHF channels. We're both old enough to remember when you only had 6 channels, Lon.
Yeah, it was PBS. I mean, that's the only time or UHF show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would watch that. I love that because it was kind of like, that really got me started. In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and the Time Life book series. Do you remember that from back in the day? They had
absolutely.
One on Bigfoot, one on Uri Geller, one on and psychics, one on life after death, one on UFOs, Bigfoot. That was a great series. I still have. I happened across a yard sale where that whole series was in a box, and I bought them and took them home to remember my childhood. Right? Yeah. But you're right. It seems like, especially, there's so many ghost shows, and we've got hunting, searching for Bigfoot and Monster Quest. History Channel probably largely did a lot to kind of make it more accepted and more like,
Yeah.
okay, there's something to this because so many people are into it, and it's certainly become incredibly popular. And don't you have you got on Unsolved Mysteries, didn't you?
Yeah, it was released today. The new season of Unsolved Mysteries
I'm gonna find
was just released on Netflix today, and our episode, "The Mothman Revisited," is on there, and I'm in it. Myself and Tobias Whalen, my investigator and partner. Yeah, this whole case, whole case in Chicago, we've been looking into this for about 13 years now. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So for those in my audience, if you want to see more of this guy, what do I got here? I got an ad. Got stuck on an ad, Lon.
Yeah, check that out.
It's not letting me close it. Let me try a different way then. Sorry about that, friends. I'm stuck. Okay, I'll get to it when I get to it. But if you want to see more of this guy, check out Netflix Unsolved Mysteries. Can you tell us a little bit about that case that's going to be on Unsolved Mysteries while I try to pull this up?
Well, the Mothman, I mean, I think a lot of people have heard about the actual Mothman in the Point Pleasant, and that was part of the Mothman Mothman prophecy book that John Keel investigated and wrote about. But what happened back in 2011, people in Chicago and the Chicagoland area started seeing something very similar, especially with the red eyes. But it was a winged humanoid that people were seeing. But the descriptions was somewhat different than what people had been talking. And there it is right there. So had something different than what was described or seen at Point Pleasant. These creatures, for the most part, were very dark in color, emaciated humanoids with wings. For the most part, the wings were bat-shaped. They had a wingspan from 12 to 15 foot, height of sometimes from 5 to 7, 8 foot. Many of them had red eyes. Some of them didn't. But
that's demonic.
Yeah, well, some of the areas around there, especially in Little Village and some of the Hispanic areas, they were calling it the Diablos. Of course, they thought it was a demon. But
yeah, and Diablo is Spanish for devil.
Devil. So, but this, these sightings have continued on during that period of time. 2017 is really started picking up. And it's been all over the city. In fact, we have been taking sightings within a 250-mile radius of Chicago. So we're getting sightings up into Wisconsin, all throughout Illinois into Indiana. And it's a conundrum. We have no idea what these things really are. We've got our theories, but I personally believe it's an interdimensional being. Because, like I said before, people see it manifest and then they see it disappear. And it's so sudden, it's so fleeting. Many times people don't see it for more than just a couple seconds. And a lot of times it has the ability to fly without even flapping its wings. It's got a lot of characteristics that are definitely supernatural or just unexplained. So, yeah, if you get a chance to go onto Netflix and see the episode. Like I said, it was just released today, and I've been busy all day. I've been just swamped with people contacting me about.
Yeah, I got you on the wrong day. I apologize.
Well, that's fine.
I didn't know this was coming out today, or I would have said do it afterwards.
I know you didn't.
I can imagine, like, goddamn, Lon Strickler's on Unsolved Mysteries. You got to have had a crazy day today with people.
It's been interesting. It really has.
I have Netflix, so I'll be watching this later tonight, at least your episode. I grew up with Unsolved Mysteries and I loved it, but there's something about the reboot that I don't like, and I finally figured out what it is. No Robert Stack.
No Robert Stack, no celebrities describing and quite frankly, the people who started the original production, Terry Muir and her group, they're still doing it, but they did change it up. And of course, that I think it has to do with what Netflix what
Yeah,
Netflix.
but one of the things I noticed is that they sort of changed the way that they told the story. In Unsolved Mysteries, it was like Robert Stack would narrate a script, and
Yep.
they would do the recreation. Now it's like they go straight to the people, and the people
They go right to the
themselves,
witnesses and the
they tell the story.
investigators. Absolutely.
Which,
Yep.
I don't know. I just noticed. I really tried to like the new series. I watched it all. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but I really think that they should have got me to replace Robert Stack, or somebody like Robert Stack. There's it's funny. I did a green screen thing where I wear the same kind of coat that he wore, and I have fog in the background for a project that I did, sort of in homage to him. One of the reasons I'm here is because of Robert Stack and Unsolved Mysteries. That's definitely one of the reasons. We have Bob Kiviat, who was one of the writers and producers of the original series here, and that was a thrill for me.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but regardless, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be so critical. Check out
that's fine.
Make sure you check it out. It's still enjoyable. I just noticed some changes that I didn't agree with, right? But who am I, right?
Yeah, it's
you got to
different.
do what you got to do what Netflix asked you to do to get the deal. So I don't blame
you.
You
got to get the budget, and they're the ones with the money, so that you kind of got to go through all them.
So on the episode that you're in, you're exploring this recent Mothman sightings that you've been 13 years. 13 years we've been investigating that.
We had several witnesses come forward and actually get on the camera and explain what they experienced, and I was impressed with it. I've done TV shows before, but when you got a production company as well done that's as good as this,
sure,
and you got a budget the way they do, of course, CGI and everything else and such that they use, it really does tell the story, I believe, much simpler now. But I have done smaller budget shows that had
I can never imagine when I see some of the big budget way that people, I go, wow, that would be awesome, because everything that I do is like me being a one-man army. I got to film it, host it, edit it, so, and I go so slow because you got to wear all these hats, and meanwhile, those kind of budgets, they have music people, they have grips, they have multiple editors. It is well done, the new series. I just noticed the changes, and I went, I was kind of hoping for just a continuation of the old way to,
everybody comes out of California. I mean, they bring everything in, and it's not like you had 3 or 4 people that are doing the filming. We're talking like 50 to 60 people, if not more, right there at the location doing all of it, and of course the director and everybody else. And it's really something that I had never experienced before. But I tell you, I would never want to do it any other way, quite frankly, because it was so seamless.
If I had that kind of production situation, I sure wouldn't want to go back to the one-man army method of
I'm telling you,
yourself and do it on the cheap, and
I always laugh. Some of these shows are brutal.
Somebody said something about one of my free documentaries. By the way, we do try to be a public benefit, so we have one that was on this Todd Standing Bigfoot footage, which I thought was ridiculous, but I did my best, and I brought in all these experts to look at the footage and tell me what they thought, and we made a free documentary out of the series that we did here on the show. And somebody nasty in my comments said something like, "Oh, this is so crappy and low budget." I'm like, low budget? There was no budget. There was zero budget. There was no money. There was, no money at all. But I'm still amazed with, you got to use whatever you can to make up for your deficiencies. So, we have technology. We have these cameras that you could buy a 4K camera on Amazon for $100 now. And, and you could buy editing software for $50. And if you have a computer, that's all you really need. Everything else is gravy. It's interesting that, to see the difference. I was involved in a larger documentary film project, and I was similarly impressed, not quite as impressed as you were, but these, like a documentary film guy came here with a cameraman and, all the equipment, and it was impressive to see, the other side of the fence. Right. But that's good for you. It's got to be good for your,
oh yeah,
for your online presence too, that millions of people are going to see that Netflix episode.
Well, I tell you, the map, I have a map for the Mothman sightings that I have, that I've been adding to for years. And when they released it last night at midnight Eastern time, in 11 hours, I had 350,000 page views of the map.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that just tells you how.
I hope you got that monetized.
No, yeah, that's on Google, so it's not monetized.
Yeah. Oh, too bad. You get some ad money.
But it directs people over to the website, so of course, they can click on there and go over to the website. But I was really impressed, and I just hope people enjoy it. They understand what we've been doing, and what's really involved.
Yeah, I mean, 13 years
paranormal investigation like that.
Yeah, 13 years is a long time to be looking into one sort of subject and compiling the information. And it's interesting that Netflix is smart, and the producers of Unsolved Mysteries are smart. They do bring in experts like you, because why should they spend months trying to investigate something? They've got a guy that's got all the information. Let's bring him in here and sort of like drink from his well that he's been building here. It's a good way to do it. Yeah. It's definitely a good way to do it. But back to
it was a lot of work even before we started filming. I mean, we were really, you got to talk to the researchers and everybody with the network and with the production company. And we did about 6 months of work before we even got in front of a camera. And after we did the filming back in June of 2023, it's just being released now. So it's 14 months. So yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, I'm getting sarcastic comments from one of my buddies here. Mr. Ian, who does some of the intros and the outros, says, "We don't do a thing. It's all Steve." I didn't say nobody helps me. I said we have no budget, Mr. Ian. That's what we you got to do what you got to do. So if somebody is good at doing something like, hey, here's an intro you could use for your show, or here's some music, or here's whatever it is a team effort here. And I do appreciate the help, Mr. Ian. Sarcastic. Back to the Dogman stuff, though. I'm still so fascinated that there's so many in Pennsylvania. Do you have any? Yeah. Do you have any even theories about why there's so many sightings of this specific kind of cryptid in Pennsylvania? Because I was thinking black bears. We talked right before the show, and I told Ron that I once swore that I was in the woods. I was hiking, and off in the distance, next to a tree, I swore I saw a bipedal Bigfoot. At first, I was like, holy shit, that's a Bigfoot. And I crouched down and I started moving towards it to get a better look at it. And when I got closer, what I saw was a black bear scratching its back on a tree. But that experience taught me or like informed me, like, oh, okay, so it's that easy sometimes to think you saw a Bigfoot when it's just a bear on its hind legs, So how many of these sightings do you think are misidentification?
I figured out it was just a bear. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think some of these
Pennsylvania in particular, because we have animals that can almost mimic what a Bigfoot or somebody would perceive a Bigfoot to be like. And a black bear standing up on his legs and scratch his butt on a tree. I mean, anybody can, at a distance or in the foliage there can think, wow, it's a Bigfoot, But and a lot of people can make that mistake. And of course, I have received reports over the years where I was sure that they did not see a Bigfoot. Even with the canines, I have received reports where just believed it was something else other than what they're saying it was. You know, people perceive things differently than other people. I mean, everybody has their own, you know, their mind can kind of generate all kinds of thoughts or interpretations of what they're seeing. But that's why I'm pretty careful about witnesses as far as any type of phenomena. And you almost have to be. You got to, you know, you just can't take them at their word.
I think I'd have a hard time doing some of the stuff you do, Lon, because I agree that you got to be nice, you got to be kind to these people, or they're not going to talk to you. But I'd be like, "Are you sure you're not full of shit? You know, like, were you drunk? Were you high?" Like, I wouldn't get a reputation for being somebody you should give your sighting report to, probably, because I'd be a little too.
Well, you know, I learned from the very beginning the best thing to do is, you know, if somebody says they have an account and they send you a report, first thing you want to do is talk to them directly, either on the phone or by in person. But then you let them tell you the story, and you know, just keep your mouth shut and listen to what they have to say. Let them get it out of there. Then start probing a bit and possibly see. And I don't want them embellishing anything. I want them to tell me what they saw. I don't want any crap out of them. I just want something that's made up. I want to know what they saw, what they experienced, and then I go from there. And of course, if I can get to the location where it happened, we will do that, or I'll send some of my team there.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you too, because
yeah.
I'm interested enough in this to drive to some of these places.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done that and then saw something yourself, or is it usually like you just see the location and you don't see anything else?
Normally, you go to location, you don't see anything anybody said they saw. I've had 2 encounters personally, but years ago, I had a Bigfoot encounter in 1981, and I had a winged humanoid encounter back in 1988. One was in Pennsylvania, one was down in Maryland. And you know, I understand what people feel and how they react to seeing something they just don't understand or is unexplained. Most investigators have not experienced anything that they investigate. I have been fortunate, very fortunate. So I know what it feels like to be ridiculed, and I know what it feels like to be telling someone what you saw or what you encountered. And I think that gives me a somewhat of an advantage.
Well, you could be empathetic and sympathetic because you've been there.
You almost have to be, because you don't want to get them thinking that you may just take it out of hand and say it didn't happen. You know, if I think somebody's trying to pull wool over my eyes, I'll tell them. And I'm not afraid to do that. You know, if I drive 200 miles to someplace and I get there and I know the guy's telling me a lie, I'll just tell him, you know, I'll back up, get back in my car and go home. But on the other side of things, I mean, if I think it's something that requires more investigations, I'll either do it myself or start bringing other people into it. And that has happened. That's just like what happened in Chicago. I mean, you know, I started bringing more and more investigators into it. We got a lot of backlash out of it. And of course, something like that happening in a city, let alone out in the woods somewhere, you know, cryptid investigations in a rural, I mean, in an urban area, even though some of the other sightings have been outside the city.
When I heard of all these sightings in Chicago, it made me think of I think Predator 2, where they were in like Los Angeles and there was this alien running around the city. It made me think of that. Like, this is a weird location for this to happen.
Well, the first thing I got, and I don't know if you ever watched the old Kolchak shows from years ago back in the 70s or the early 80s.
My dad liked that shit, and he had them on VHS. We used to watch
that was in Chicago. So I heard a lot of crap about it. You're just trying to be like Kolchak. Well, no.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with it. But, the whole Chicago thing has been, that has really kind of set the crypto community on its ear, because you never see stuff like cryptid encounters like that in a city.
It's usually in a
you just
rural
don't do
area.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly a rural setting.
I thought a lot of the Mothman sightings in the rural areas were very, very large barnyard owls. That's what I thought.
Well, they could be.
If you ever been swooped by a really big owl, it's something. Yeah. It's something. I could, again, just like with my fake Bigfoot encounter that was a bear. If you've ever been in close proximity, like a owl swoops over you or something, I could see how somebody could mistake that for something more than it is. You know.
Oh yeah, and look, I think some of the reports that we got early on were just big owls, or blue herons, or possibly whooping cranes, or because they do have flyways that go near and around up Lake Michigan and such. So yeah, I understand that, and we've had sightings that we were pretty sure were not of this winged humanoid.
Yeah, like that's a pretty amazing thing to see, and especially if it was at night, and it's easy to see how somebody could mistake something like that swooping down on them.
Absolutely.
And then your perspective at night could be skewed, so you think it's bigger or longer or whatever than it actually is. And if it's dark, maybe you think you thought you saw legs and arms, but really it was just a barnyard owl. I'm even interested in that.
You got to take everything in consideration. You really do. I mean, you'd like for it to be true, but a lot of times it's just the perception of the witness, and that has happened all the years I've been doing this. I mean, of course, I have had a lot of sightings that I just figured out were not true, and I just didn't go any further with it. But we've been pretty discernible with this the Mothman and with these cryptid canine sightings here in Pennsylvania. I will not report it unless I think there's something to it. I've got a whole file full of false reports that could have very well been something else. Even if there's just a question, I'm not going to report it.
Well, that proves
there's a crane. I mean, that's
So somebody in the live chat mentioned a whooping crane is also a likely candidate for a misidentification of a.
Oh, absolutely.
Humanoid. Yeah. Those things are huge, right? And isn't there a lot of sightings in Florida?
Yeah, they're big.
In places where there's a lot of whooping cranes.
No, I had three winged humanoid sightings in Pasco County around Zephyr Hills back around the same time this stuff started in Chicago, really started getting heavy back in 2017. And I talked to all the witnesses, and I think there was something going on there other than a bird. And in fact, one guy actually hit this thing with his truck. And the way he described this thing hitting, he had a high panel truck, and it hit above the cab on the truck and rolled. He heard this thing rolling on the top of his truck, and he stopped the truck, and it was laying out on the road. It was dark, but he was laying out on the road, and of course the red lights in back of his truck illuminated this thing. He walked up to it very slowly, and the way he described it, it sounded like it was a gargoyle. It was human like that, and it had the gargoyle wings. It was not a bird because it had a huge head and everything else.
Was it dead, or did he?
It got up and flew off.
Oh wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had those. I had those three sightings around the same time. Now we got a lot of weird stuff down in Florida. I mean, I will admit to that. We get some things there that we just don't necessarily get in other places. But that's just the nature of everything down there. I mean, when you're talking about swamps and areas that are technically just wilderness that can hide and people just don't see. I mean, you do get a lot of stuff. but Florida, I think I get more UFO sightings in Florida than anywhere else. Quite frank with you, some pretty wild ones too. But that involves some type of otherworldly being involved with it, and a few other things. But
somebody mentioned turkey buzzards too as another likely candidate for misidentification. Those are huge. Sometimes, you know, I don't know if they can have like a 12 or 15-foot wingspan. That's pretty interesting.
Turkey buzzards can usually get up to around 7 or 8, 9, 10 foot, maybe.
Okay, I'll defer to the expert. I was going off the top of my head. So. Yeah.
And you know, of course, that's a feathered wing, and most
These
of what
people are
we've been
seeing
getting,
creatures with bat wings, right? Not feathered
bat wings, the membrane type wings. Yeah. So, look, I can understand where people would say, you know, it's some type of natural creature, but quite frankly, you know, after you hear all the sightings and the locations and other sightings, and you go to the area where a lot of them are concentrated at, there's just no way that it is some type of natural creature. It doesn't make it any easier because, you know, but some of the accounts and some of what people have expressed to us over these years, there's just something much different than what a natural creature would do.
Did you ever see, I don't know what their natural habitat is, but like what areas they're in, but giant golden crowned flying foxes. Did you ever see one of those?
Yep.
That's another one that makes me think maybe people are saying this because that would go bat wings.
Well, the flying foxes, you know, we've had some sightings around some of the like Lincoln Park in Chicago around the zoo and stuff. People say maybe a flying fox got away.
That could be easily mistaken, in my opinion, for a flying humanoid. If it was dark, if your perceptions were a little bit off. Look at this; those things are huge.
But most flying foxes are in tropical areas.
They would be in zoos. If they were in the United States, they'd be in zoos, so they'd have to have.
Yeah, they could be in a zoo.
Yeah.
But of course, we check into that. You know, in fact, when we had sightings around the zoo, we checked in with the people at the zoo. So they didn't pan out.
I do like that about you because I've talked to some other cryptid people that I instantly thought were not credible because they didn't even try to eliminate the prosaic. And I know that you do, but for the benefit of my audience, I'm playing devil's advocate here and trying to.
I get it.
Because sometimes Occam's razor does apply, and the simplest explanation is likely the most reasonable and most likely, right?
And I agree with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that there were skunk ape or Bigfoot reports in Florida that were eventually they figured out that somebody released a chimp into the wild. Like maybe it's very common for people to get chimps as pets, and as soon as they pass puberty, you can't handle that chimp anymore. So people just get
unfortunately, Florida has a history of animals that shouldn't be released or shouldn't be in an environment that do get out there.
There was Komodo dragon in Florida one time. I think. Somebody had one as a pet. It got too big. It got out of the yard or whatever. Just walking around
constrictors, pythons, everything else. It's ridiculous down in Florida with some of the animals that shouldn't be out there. But there have been instances where, especially around Homestead, when they had the big hurricane. Was that Hurricane Michael?
Yeah.
When it got
because
flat,
you can imagine, like maybe some animal enclosures got open.
A lot of monkeys and apes got loose. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just running around the woods, and that's a good environment for them. Like that's close enough to their natural habitat that they would survive for at least a while.
And they go feral pretty easily. So,
Yeah. So, but back to the Dogman, we talked about the possible other explanations, I guess, bear sightings or feral dogs, coyotes, wolves. You know, in my at my cabin, we're not supposed to have wolves, but I'm convinced there are wolves. And but I was talking to a park ranger about this very issue, and he told me that what a lot of people are seeing in the area of my cabin, because it's not just me, like people are seeing these huge, what everybody describes as a wolf, but it turns out that a lot of the canines, or I'm sorry, a lot of the local coyotes interbred with like people's dogs in their yard or with wolves. And he said that they're going to be doing some sort of DNA study on some of the local so-called coyotes, because I know I've seen coyotes in the wild. This is not what me and many of my neighbors are seeing around there. That's not a coyote. It's too big. It's way too big.
What we're getting, what's going on in Pennsylvania, for the most part, where people are confused, are coy wolves.
Coy wolves. Okay.
We had, and a lot of them are coming down from Canada, particularly at the junction there in Ontario around Niagara and down that area. If you ever go to Toronto, they've got a really bad coy wolf infestation around Toronto.
Yeah, that's a good explanation for what I saw. Look something like this. It was brown. Yeah. It wasn't like a white or gray.
They usually have they usually have longer legs on them. So they stand a little much higher than a coyote normally would.
And so this is a wolf hybrid. So it's some kind of other animal interbred with a timber wolf or a regular wolf.
Yep, timber wolves and coyotes they do interbreed, and we're getting coy wolf sightings all throughout Pennsylvania down into West Virginia.
So, and is that what most of them? A coy wolf is? It's mostly a coyote mixed with a wolf.
Yep,
that's interesting. Yep. Yeah, so maybe that's what people. I'm sure that people are seeing these around my cabin, or at least we're seeing things that we're being told by local officials are coyotes, but all of us, many of us are saying, no, I know a coyote is like the size of a fox, maybe a little bigger than a fox. These things are huge that we've been seeing,
I know several Pennsylvania Game Commission officers, and they agree with me, but they can't say it officially. There are a lot of things running around the woods of Pennsylvania that they just will not acknowledge. We do have big cats. I'm not just talking bobcats. I'm talking about mountain lions, cougars, eastern puma, and the coy wolves as well. They won't acknowledge them for the most part either, but they're here. And in fact, I have talked to three. I have talked to 3 game commission officers in the past 15 years about this whole upright cryptid canine phenomena. And most of them will agree with there's something out there. Now, they've not necessarily seen it. They have heard it, and they have seen some evidence of it. There was one in particular. Oh my God. I was up in Clearfield County. There was, up near, I think it was up near Penfield, actually. And, the individual had reported a dead elk. So when the Game Commission went up there to collect the elk, this elk was supposed to have a collar on it. The collar was missing.
Oh, that's
so when they collected the elk, they eventually found the collar, and the collar looked like it had a knife cut right through it. And you know how thick those collars are because they're leather.
Yeah.
And he said it looked like
they want to tag them for life with that thing.
Sure. And he said he put this young elk in the back of his truck, and he was trying to figure out, and he took, when he took the collar and the thing back to the station, nobody would even talk to him about it. and he was saying, well, who in the hell would have been able to find
Rip
an
that
elk
off. Yeah.
and cut through that thing?
Well, I guess a bear would. Wouldn't a bear be able to do that?
Yeah, but the thing was, now this elk was eviscerated. I doubt if a hunter would do that. But
you're right.
Knows?
And the only big cats,
but he was free.
The only big cats that are in the Poconos are apparently supposed to be bobcats and mountain lions, but they're both extremely rare, even in the Poconos. I'm sure not near my current cabin, but I have this land that's up the mountain into the woods, and there's nothing for miles. I'm sure, or almost sure. I can't be 100% sure because it was a fleeting, it like ran across the path, but I thought I saw a bobcat there in this more remote land, but I've never seen a mountain lion there, and nor do I want to, because those things can kill you. Well, I guess a bobcat could kill you too if it was hungry enough. I don't know. But
yeah, I've seen some bobcats big enough that if you corner them, they'd come at you and they'd put a hurting on you. But no, I'm convinced, just from what some of these game commissioner officers and people I know who are investigators would that there are big cats. I mean, mountain lions in Pennsylvania. I have no doubt of it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a sort of an argument with somebody who told me there are no bobcats in the Poconos, and I said, well, according to Google and people who've seen them, there are some. It's just they're very rare. They're not as common as like in Colorado or some of those other mountainous states that they're a lot more common that you'll see one, But yeah, those are scary to me because they're a couple 100 pounds, and if they're hungry, they'll jump on your back, try to bite your neck and kill you.
Yep,
that's scary. Yep. I'm always a little nervous when I'm hiking in that area where this new land is, because it's way up in the mountains and way into the woods. There's no neighbors for miles and miles and miles, and I see a lot more wildlife there, obviously, than I do where my first cabin is, because it's populated. So the animals kind of go, oh, there's too many people around here. They prefer more woodsy and less people around, I guess. But I haven't seen a Bigfoot yet. People are joking I should start a Bigfoot research center there, because they're in the Poconos, there's sightings all the time. But most of me thinks this is black bears that people are seeing and misidentifying. We had a mangy black bear around my cabin, and that thing looked weird. You ever seen a mangy black bear? Have you ever had any sightings where a mangy black bear was actually what people saw? Because
I have had some sightings, and they are weird looking. They really are. I mean, a mangy bear is kind of really strange to look at. I mean, but and it doesn't really look like a bear.
No,
you can really, and they act weird too a lot of times. So we get mangy animals every once in a while.
Like I could definitely imagine that this would be responsible for some cryptid creature like a chupacabra.
Oh, sure.
Because look at that. That does not look like a bear. It just doesn't. When you take the hair off, they do not look like bears. It looks like some other creature entirely. So I'm sure there's some mangy bears. Look at that.
Yeah.
There's some mangy bears that could be easily mistaken for a chupacabra or something, more than it is. Look at it. It doesn't look anything like a bear.
No. Nope.
Yeah. And so you've had some sightings that were misidentified mangy bears.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because somebody sent me a picture of a mangy bear like that, and I went, wow, that's weird. That is really weird. So you can imagine that people will definitely mistake something like that. And is it true though that you could care less about the misidentifications, right? You just kind of put them to the side, because it's kind of like Stanton Friedman, who used to say, a lot of UFO sightings are balloons. Don't care about those. A lot of UFO sightings are drones. Don't care about those. Kites. Don't care about those. So he did the same thing, But with UFOs, anything that was prosaic or easily
anything that's
something
questionable,
earthly, he would just put it to the side and
Yeah.
concentrate on the really mysterious sightings, right?
Yep. I don't even anything was even a question about it. I will very rarely if I do put it up there, I put it up there for people who may see it and have suggestions as to if I don't know what it is, and I'll do that. But as far as putting something up there that I know is just not real, I mean, I'm not going to put it up there.
Well, yeah. So you don't pull the third phase of moon and just play dumb. Like, I didn't know it was a mangy bear. I didn't know it was a dog, Yeah, and isn't it true that some cryptid sightings turn out to be, like you said, animals that are not where they belong? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe somebody has an exotic pet and it gets out, and then people are seeing it going, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah,
thinking it's something extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a big problem, especially in Ohio, because of the licensing and stuff. A lot of exotic animals used to get loose in these places. They've kind of tightened up on that recently. But
give out your website address. People are asking in the live chat.
Yeah, it's phantomsandmonsters.com.
That's great, and I'll be a better show host and put it in the description of the video here when we wrap up. So I apologize for that.
No problem.
Yeah, and so go on. You said that a lot of animals were getting out in Ohio.
Yeah,
because Ohio is one of those states where you can own anything. You can own an elephant, a tiger, a lion, and people do that.
It used to be like that. I think they license them much differently now, because people used to have these private zoos and such, and I don't think it's easy to do it now as it used to be. But God, I remember reading not too long ago where people would have stuff escape and such, and Ohio seemed to be the state that it was happening a lot in. Yeah,
I mean, my wife is totally against this idea, but I want to have a monkey. And in Pennsylvania, you can, but it's like a lot of paperwork and stuff to have a monkey. You gotta go through.
They're pretty tight in Pennsylvania about that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm gonna go forward with it because the wife's against it. But I keep joking with my kid that I'm gonna take a monkey shopping, And my wife has convinced my son that all monkeys are nasty and throw poop at you. So now he's against this idea too. He doesn't want a nasty monkey throwing poop at us.
Well, that's just like when back in the 70s, people talk about the big cats in UK and such. They had back in the 70s and in the 60s, you were allowed to keep exotic pets, but the United Kingdom, they outlawed it, and people were letting them loose. So that's how these big cats got loose and are thriving in the UK now.
Yeah,
because
you're right. There's a lot of
they
big
started
cat
regulating
sightings.
Exotic pets.
Big cat sightings, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of people don't realize the dangers or like what they're taking on. Like, there's a famous case, Lon, of a stage magician, and I knew him a little bit. He was a little bit nutty though, and so he somehow got a tiger, but he got it as a baby, And once that tiger got full grown, he could not afford to feed it. He couldn't afford to feed it. He was feeding it like turkey carcasses and stuff that people were bringing him and roadkill.
Yeah.
And eventually animal control came and they confiscated the animal from him because it was sadly severely neglected. People don't think things through. Like, can I afford 300 pounds of meat a week for this tiger, or I don't know how many 100 pounds, don't quote me, but you know what I mean? So, and it was in the news and everything that the animal control came and took the animal from him because he had it in a tiny cage in his backyard, like in the woods somewhere.
Yeah. And
they were concerned that it was either going to get out or that he was neglecting it. He could not afford to feed it. That's something for, a tiger is something that only like a big organization can handle taking care of. And just the vet bills alone, plus a couple 100 pounds of meat a week. Like, that's a lot
Yeah.
of meat. He couldn't feed it. He did not think this through. And then I felt like I never got a chance to talk to him after this event happened, but I wanted to ask him, like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, what are you going to do with it? You're going to bring it to like a high school show and here's my tiger, which is on a leash, like, so
I don't get it.
So we know that a lot of these sightings are, I suppose, misidentifications, maybe some escaped exotic animals, but it's the mysterious ones that keep you interested, right? The ones that you cannot explain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which of the cases do you think were the most mysterious and perplexing that really got you going?
Oh, the winged humanoid by far is
that's
the most.
Your thing, the Mothman.
Yeah,
thing,
that's.
Good for you, because you got on Netflix with that for.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had my encounter back in '88 of this winged red-eyed being, me and two other guys, and I've been obsessed. Can I say obsessed? I guess maybe I am, but the whole phenomena with the Mothman or the winged humanoid, it just fascinates the hell out of me, and I want answers, and that's why I've stuck with this thing in Chicago for as long as I have. We've had sightings here in Pennsylvania of these winged. Mine was in Pennsylvania. I had 5 other sightings in this South Central Pennsylvania area. We've had a couple down in Maryland. We've had a couple in other counties around here. So yeah, it's it's really an enigma. We really don't know what it is, but we still get them. And we have people that see these things that have no idea what it is. And see, that's the whole thing about any of this. It's getting someone who will eventually come forward and tell you their story, then you get the chance to investigate it. That's like a drug to me.
Yeah, so it's interesting that a lot of these Dogman sightings were right near my home. I'm going to go through your map, and I'm going to maybe visit some of those areas.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do a hunting for Dogman episode, which will basically amount to me sitting in the woods wondering what the hell I'm doing out there, probably.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know how far I don't know if you live close to Doylestown in Bucks County.
I am right next to that. It's 10 miles from me.
Doylestown has been a hot spot. We've had 3 or 4 sightings in the last 5 or 6 years that we just don't know what to think about it, because they're in areas where there are people living, but it's, how Doylestown is. Bucks County's got a lot of forest and stuff. And
that's exactly where I live. I live in Bucks County. I live in Warminster.
Oh, okay.
And the next town over from me is Doylestown. And Doylestown is a little more...
Yeah.
Warminster's a little more suburban with houses and a lot more population. And Doylestown is a little more farmy. There's a lot of farms over there. And, we go to the farmer's market over there. And, there's Shady Brook Farms. And, yeah.
I'm going to look here real quick. And there's a restaurant that we had that's been very close to where the sightings were.
Well, that's
shoot. Yeah. The Water Wheel Tavern. You know where that's at?
I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
On Old Eastern Road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That area there with the forest and everything. We've had 2 sightings there.
Water Wheel Tavern. That'd be, and that's a good filming location because there's a tavern right there.
That's an excellent place. We've actually thought about. There's a gentleman who lives in Doylestown who is an investigator, and he and I are friends, and we have thought about doing some filming there. So, and I think
I'm right next to there, so I'd be happy to go and do that for you and share it. There's the Water Wheel Tavern, and it's surrounded by woods,
and
so
where
you can get a nice meal while you're there.
The parking lot where that parking lot where the picture that you had up there of it, right behind that parking lot, behind where you would be standing taking that picture, there's a stream there, and then there's a small bridge on Old Eastern Road, and that woods behind that area is where these things have been seen at.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take a trip out there and film it. And I'm looking for more boots on the ground kind of stuff to do to include in the show. Here's probably the back of it there. Yeah, they have like a patio and you get a nice meal while you're there, looks like too. Looks like great food, you know?
Yeah, I think I actually ate there once years ago, but I don't remember it.
I got to stay away from drinking, but I don't have to stay away from pub food. I love pub food. It's always good like comfort food, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks great. I'll definitely check it out. And you know what? I can tell you 1 second. I'll tell you exactly how far that is from my home. It's 18 minutes from my home, 10.6 miles. 10 miles from my house, yeah. So when I told my audience that these Dogman sightings are happening literally right in my backyard, 10 miles away.
Yeah, you weren't lying.
There's 2 there, right? Do you think that the people there would be receptive at that tavern to me going in and asking them about the Dogman sightings?
I don't know.
Oh well, we'll find out.
I haven't talked to the establishment there. I think
can't hurt to ask him.
Yeah, Eric Mentel is the guy who's the investigator in Doylestown, and he's actually a musician, but he's been doing a lot of the cryptid canine. In fact, he's going to be talking about cryptid canines at the Mothman Festival this year down at Point Pleasant, and he and I worked on a couple cases together. So, and he was actually out in Wisconsin 2 times in the last 3 years, looking into the Beast of Bray Road as well. So he has collected some stuff. So he may be an interesting guy to get on your show. I mean, he knows your area, and he does a lot of investigating out in Bucks County.
Yeah, I think I found him already. Eric Mintel Investigates.
Yep.
Maybe.
That's him.
Yeah, I'll check into him. Sounds great. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me some leads for future stuff to do for the show. Do you mind taking a couple of questions from the live chat?
Go ahead.
Okay, guys, we have we're running out the clock here, but let's questions for Lon Stricker here. Put them in all capital letters, and please be respectful. Everybody's been kind to you, so you survived here. I'm proud of you. Sometimes, you know,
I don't worry about skeptics.
I've cultivated a very skeptical audience, but since this one is so close to my house and all these people are seeing this weird stuff, I'm like, we got to do something about this. But sometimes people can be, you know, skeptical and rude, but we have a good crowd tonight. When I was a kid, my mom would buy a big ground steak and divvy it up. Okay, well, questions for Lon Stricker, put them in all capital letters. I did see some questions, but I have to go back and find them, and you didn't put them in all capital letters. Oh, here's one. ML. Ever hear the 9/11 call from the lady whose monkey ate her friend's face over a Tickle Me Elmo doll?
I have heard that, actually.
Yeah? Okay, and here's an excellent question. When was the last Chicago area Mothman sighting?
April.
Wow, so this is
the most recent one. Yeah, the most recent one was a guy west of Chicago who actually saw this thing 3 times and took a shot at it with his pistol, if you can believe that. Now, he saw this thing at 3 different locations within a year, in a 20-mile radius of his, you know, of all the sightings together. First time we've ever had anybody come forward and say they literally took a shot at it with a gun. But it scared the living hell out of him. It put a dent in his truck, too. The thing landed on his truck and put a dent on the fender.
But it didn't die. It got away, I guess, right?
It got away. He said it bounced, the bullets or whatever just bounced right off of it. And this guy was freaking out. I mean, he literally called me on the phone and was telling me all about this. I mean, my other investigator, he talked to him as well. And this guy wasn't trying to pull the wool over our eyes. This guy's, he's freaked out about it.
This is a good question from Admiral Rascals, who says, do they make a screaming noise, the dogmen, that is?
They can make a screaming noise, but for the most part, it's like a howling, but a yip sound.
That's interesting.
The ones I have heard and identified, it's a yipping sound for the most part, but they can do a sustained howling.
I think when a lot of people in a wooded area hear screaming noise, what they're hearing is coyotes. They sound like they're
coyotes are very high pitched.
They sound like a screaming baby or screaming child. We hear them at the cabin sometimes. And honestly, I was such a city boy. I spent my life with my father. He was like a Boy Scout master, Cub Scout master, and we went camping, but I'd never heard that before. And got this, start building this cabin in the Poconos, and one night I heard that. I thought there was a kid like in the woods. I went looking, and later one of my neighbors was like, "Oh no, that's just coyotes. They sound like screaming children sometimes in the woods." I'm like, "Oh my God," because it was really, really crazy. Rose Eero says, "What was the first cryptid that Lon researched or learned about, if not Dogman?"
Well, it was Bigfoot, because I had my encounter back in '81, and I wasn't doing any cryptid investigations until I had the actual Bigfoot encounter.
Oh yeah, and that ties in with the next
started it all,
which was, has Lon seen anything himself? So you saw a Bigfoot.
Yes, I have.
And you saw a winged
humanoid.
creature.
Yep.
And Chuck Bam is being sarcastic because you know about the Skinwalker Ranch and the smoking dogmen. Do you know about that?
I heard about it.
Do the dogmen smoke? That comes to us courtesy of George Knapp. That's one of my favorite George Knapp stories. I have it. I have the clip of it somewhere. He's telling stories about Skinwalker Ranch, and he's like, these two guys, they saw these two guys standing there, and then they noticed they were dogs. They turned around and they were smoking, It's kind of stupid, but that's George Knapp for you, I think that they don't do themselves any any favors with credibility for the Skinwalker show saying things like that,
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't watch that show.
No, I don't either. I think it's I don't watch any show with Travis Taylor in it because he's kind of full of it. So I think it's just entertainment, It's
entertainment. That's exactly what he is. I mean,
Well, the thing that's really funny is they go, "Oh, there's this terrible oppressive presence, and it's something called a hitchhiker. So if you come to Skinwalker, you could take like a demon home with you, and people have been hospitalized, and they make you sign this liability waiver when you go in there, and yet they're doing conventions with all of them. Wouldn't that be a danger to the public?
That whole Skinwalker Ranch thing is just gotten out of hand. I used to watch it once in a while when it first came out, but the first day Linda Moulton Howe came out, that was the last time I watched it because she's full of crap. And I have dealt with Linda many times before. And
I didn't know I could. Did you know I busted her with fake alien pictures twice. I busted her with completely fake alien pictures twice.
One day I will talk to you alone and tell you some stories about her and some of the stuff I put up with her. But I'm not a fan of Linda's.
Listening to Lon's reports. Cheers, Lon. So that's not a question, but
I enjoy talking.
Fine too. Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you on the Netflix episode. That's really an accomplishment. I would feel great if I got on Unsolved Mysteries with the case I investigated. You should too. That's a huge thing because that's you know what it is, Lon. You're off in the underground of the internet, So to get that opportunity to be on a huge show that millions of people are going to see with one of the cases that you're investigating, that's a big accomplishment. You should be proud. That's awesome.
Well, I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to tell our story, that's a big stage to do it on. So yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of work, but we're very grateful for it.
Yeah, it's great. So, boy, I don't know what I was going to ask you. Like after that, like what are the new projects that you work? Do you have any new projects that you're working on coming up, or are you just going to keep?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep on winging it. I mean, I've written 9 books and over the years, and I've actually written 2 about this thing in Chicago. So it's nice to have some people come, to really take some interest in it and take us seriously about this. And I think people who do get to watch the show will realize that we're serious about what we do. As far as other projects, if it comes my way and I think that is something that is worthwhile to look into, then absolutely I will do it. And, if anybody's interested in opportunities come our way, we'll take care of that when it comes.
Sure. And your website, once again, is phantomsandmonsters.com, right?
Right.
And that's one of my guilty pleasures. Sometimes in the morning when I'm starting my day, I check in to see you're posting reports there almost every day, right?
I try to do it every day. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want a great website for this kind of cryptid creatures and strange paranormal sightings, phantomsandmonsters.com. I enjoy it, and I'm sure that my audience will as well. So I want to thank you.
I appreciate that.
I want to thank you for taking the time, especially now that you're a big Netflix star. Probably couldn't get you to do this. After this, you'll be, you'll need a bigger show, right? You'll need bigger shows to go on. But I was happy to hear that you got that opportunity. That's a great opportunity. That's awesome that so many more people are going to see some of your work, because I do think that a lot of people, you and a lot of people like you, or including me, we're off in the underground, and we're doing our thing, but you don't get the recognition that something like a Netflix episode on Unsolved Mysteries will give you. That kind of exposure. You should have had a book ready on this case to go with that. Right?
Oh, I have 2 books out. I've had out for a couple of years on this.
Oh yeah, so just hawk those. Yeah,
absolutely.
And are your books available? I forgot to ask, but are your books available?
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon. Just put my name in, Lon Stricker, and it'll come up on Amazon. They're in audiobook too, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to share my screen. So all you have to do if you want to get some of Lon's books is go to Amazon and put in his name, Lon Stricker. Here we see Alien Disclosure, Experiencers Expose Reality, and The Meme Humanoids, Modern Myths or Real Monsters. That's interesting. And how many books have you written now? Winged Creatures?
I have written 9, but there are 4 in print.
Okay. So some of these may be out of print, but you could probably get Kindle copies, right?
Most of the early ones are out of print.
Oh. Well, buy the ones that you can buy, guys. Maybe he'll reprint the other ones, right?
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about taking a lot of the old ones and editing and put it into one volume. I talked about it with my editor. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
We are working. Me and a couple other people are working on some possible books. I've actually got 2 that I've been working on, and one is the Cryptid Canine. So that, and another one I'm working with a gentleman down in Texas is the Glimmer Man phenomena.
Oh, I've heard about that. That's interesting too.
Yeah.
Well, when you get those, if you do get those books done and on Amazon, let me know. You can come back and talk about that. I'd appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to let us know about these Dogman creatures now. But pretty soon, I'm not going to know whether to thank you or punch you in the face, because I'm going to be in my local area out looking for a dog man. Like Lon said, there's Dogmen here. I got to find one. I got my cameras. I got maybe I'll have some other equipment with me. We'll see what we can find, and I'll let you know.
Go ahead. Get a hold of Eric Mentel. He will. You can hit him up, and he'll tell you all about Bucks County.
I'll definitely do that. I thank you for taking the time to do this. It's always a pleasure talking to a real expert on these cryptid creature phenomenon. Thanks for doing this. Don't be a stranger, Lon. You have a good evening.
I won't be. You just take care, and you got any questions, just let me know.
All right, thanks, Lon. What a fun conversation, friends. But now I'm on the hook. I got to go look for Dogmen. 10 miles. There's 2 Dogmen sightings 10 miles from my house. I got to go look for a Dogman. Wait till I tell my son. Maybe I'll take him with me and get lunch at that place that we showed you. He would probably enjoy that. And then we'll go we'll go by the creek there and look for Dogman while we're there. I got some cameras and tripods, and I've been meaning to do some more sort of boots on the ground reports for our show here. Unfortunately, time is always short, especially in the summer with my 2 children with me. So comments or questions for me, please put them in all capital letters, and I apologize. For those unaware, we're a viewer-supported show. I read every single super chat, but I feel very uncomfortable interrupting a guest interview every time a super chat comes in. But we want to take a moment to thank Village Floral House for a kind and generous $19.99 super sticker. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And, of course, for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right. And then here is why you should definitely subscribe. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Share this video on your social media, wherever that be, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can. It really does help. And also be sure to smash that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell, and you'll know when we're doing one of the live tapings for our show here, like this one. You can come and participate in the live chat or join our Discord server. But one of the reasons why you should definitely hit subscribe is because people gift free memberships to our channel here, like Rotary Motion, a kind and generous member himself just did. And what happens when somebody does that is YouTube will randomly give that free gifted membership out to someone who is subscribed to our channel, but has not yet hit the join button and become a member. And by the way, we have a Patreon as little as $1 a month. It's whatever amount you choose, but the buy-in is only $1. And the YouTube channel membership is $5. You get the same extra goodies for both, but if you join the channel on YouTube, you get that member badge like Rotary Motion has there, letting all the other people in the live chat know that you're a member and big supporter of the show. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. You could get a free membership. Rotary Motion just gifted a free membership. Like I said, if you're subscribed but not yet a member, YouTube somehow randomly gives these gifted memberships out to people who are subscribers but not yet members. Thank you, Rotary Motion, for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Yes, and our cash clown is not very happy because I told him that I tried a different cash clown. So he wants to do some new bumpers, and we're going to be working on that. He doesn't want to lose his job to AI. Who else? Who else? Nobody wants to lose their job to AI. Patty Wilhelm says, Wilcock be gone. Yes, we rebuke you, Satan. He's a false prophet. And by the way, I'll have an update about Mr. Wilcock very soon. For those unaware, David Wilcock of Ancient Aliens, I wouldn't say fame, I would more say infamy, because Ancient Aliens is a total bullshit fake theory based on mistranslated tablets by a quack that had no qualifications to do the translations in the form of Zechariah Sitchin. But anyway, he has threatened to have me arrested and still claims that he is suing me, apparently for a list of things he claims I did, which I did not do, including emailing animal control officers, claiming he was neglecting his dog. He's claiming that I issued death threats to him, but what actually happened is that somebody tweeted mean things at him, and he qualifies that as a death threat. He claims that I sent fake lawsuits to him, but what really happened was that he doxed several individuals and called them the P word, a child predator. YouTube doesn't like that word. And so they sent him very strongly worded sort of legal letters, not a lawsuit. I'm still digging into this, but what I found out is when he says that I sent him fake legal threats, or I'm sorry, fake lawsuits, what he really means is that somebody who wasn't me, they are individuals and sent these letters with their real names, and they're going on the record with me to confirm that they sent those letters he's talking about in response to him slandering them and calling them the P word. They sent him a letter and sent letters, I think, to Stavati saying, your board member said these things. You need to take those videos down immediately. That's what he's talking about. And by the way, I didn't send those letters to animal control, but we have on the record statements from the people who did. I also did not send those letters to Stavati Aerospace that he's calling a fake lawsuit, but I know who did, and we're getting on the record statements from them. So all of David Wilcock and his false claims, he's claiming he's going to sue me for all these things. We're providing the evidence and proof that I didn't do those things. Meanwhile, he's doubling down, claiming that I did, which to me is a form of slander. I'm going to send David Wilcock all of the proof once I get, I'm getting a document together with on the record statements from the people who did those things, who are going on the record to say, Stephen Cambion didn't send those letters, I did. And we're going to send it to Mr. Wilcock. And if he continues to make these false claims, his latest is saying, well, I would have to know that it was a lie. And so what I said about Stephen is not slander. Well, I'm going to send you by certified mail to your home. I'm going to send you to all your emails, to all of your, he's got a contact form on his website. I'm going to send the same letter to all these places. You're put on notice, Mr. Wilcock. You're notified that you are collecting super chats while you're making completely and totally false claims against me, claiming I did things that I have the witnesses who did do those things saying, no, I did. Steve Cambion didn't do that. He didn't send that letter. I did, with their real legal names. So it's irrefutable proof that he is making false claims about me and claiming he's getting me arrested, and also claiming he's going to sue me over these completely and totally false allegations. My advice to him is to take those videos down, or at least issue some sort of retraction and apology to me, because I didn't do any of the things that he's claiming that I did. He's also claimed that I lied and said I was from the Washington Post. I've explained that situation. I said I was from the Washington something. I have a written contract with a Washington, D.C. based news organization that I'll be writing an article about David Wilcock and Stavati Aerospace for. So it's a real bad idea to threaten an investigative journalist like me. And by the way, I'm sure people will argue with me. I wear many hats here, though, and investigative journalism is one of those hats. There's nobody else here doing the research and investigation, though I certainly have had help from many people and great researchers. The other thing that I want to put on the record is that I have filed multiple records requests. I'm just going to show one, but I've filed, I think I filed 7. Let me just make sure. Oh, you know what? I don't want to show this. Well, I'll just read it. So I got an email from sheriff records at bouldercounty.gov, which is a confirmation. I don't want to share my screen because it includes the ticket number, which means that this request is also public records. I don't want Mr. Wilcock to have that information. And the email I received after making 7 separate, I think 7, or let me check. I want to be clear because this could go to a legal situation. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. It's 4. I filed 4. Let me make sure once again. Yeah, okay, we'll go with 4. I'm sorry, I thought it was 7. I filed some other records requests with other individuals today for records relating to David Wilcock and his false allegations against me. But with the Boulder County Sheriff Records Office, I filed 4 requests between yesterday and today. And I received an email from them. Thank you for submitting a request to the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Requests are processed in the order received. You should receive a response from us within 3 business days. Below is a ticket number for future reference. Any additional questions can be sent to, and then they gave me an email address. So all of the false claims that David Wilcock is making, like that he was swatted and he's claiming I got him swatted or I called in a swatting on him, all these false allegations will be either confirmed or denied by the records that I have just requested. As soon as those records are in my inbox and I have reviewed them, I will make them all public on our Truth Seekers Google Drive, where we often share documents and other research materials for other researchers. David Wilcock in his latest stream yesterday said multiple times that he was swatted. And I'm here to tell you, friends, if somebody calls in an animal neglect complaint to animal control, the animal control officer does not bring the SWAT team with them to investigate those claims. I believe what happened is that the person went to Mr. Wilcock's home to talk to him about the complaints. He left a card on his door, and Mr. Wilcock is claiming that that is swatting. Just like he exaggerates everything and claims that people tweeting mean things at him, which, by the way, I did not tweet those things. He's claiming that those mean tweets are death threats. But notice that he won't show the death threats. And there's also some other interesting things, like I found in Mr. Thanks to the Hidden Podcast, they found it, not me, but they shared with me that Mr. Corey Good used the same tactics that Wilcock is using, showing a devilish picture and essentially claiming that somebody is a Satan worshiper. That's exactly what Wilcock just did to me. So, and we now have confirmation from David Wilcock himself that he's getting his information about me from Corey Good. And we all know how great a legal mind Corey Good is, right? And I guess he's getting his legal advice from Corey Good as well. We know he's not speaking to a real attorney because a real attorney would tell him, don't say anything about this on the internet. And we know that the police are not investigating me for filing false reports against Mr. Wilcock because the police too would tell him not to say anything about any of this until the investigation is over with. David Wilcock is a pathological liar, in my opinion. We've caught him in many, many, many lies, and we'll continue to catch him in lies. I will not be threatened or intimidated into silence as a journalist or as an American citizen. I have the right to free speech. Trolly Troll is here and says, David Wilcock has over 500,000 subscribers. How many of them are unhinged wackadoos? By bringing you up constantly, maybe he's trying to swat you via one of these nuts to shut you up. Yeah, it's very dangerous because he's falsely telling his followers that I threatened his life. The animal abuse was real, Village Floral House says. His own fans were begging him to please give the dog some painkillers. Yeah, that's the sad part of this. Craig Williamson says David Wilcock has moved on to Agri Dad M8. Yeah. Rose Eros says Gurley was pacing and kneading outside and he was annoyed and didn't help her during one of the last shows she was around. Yeah, because he's too busy doing 4-hour streamathons of nonsense and doing the super chat shuffle because he's so desperate for money. And, you know, I was going to share some clips, but I'm going to save that for my next Wacky World of Wilcock episode, which may come sooner rather than later. But I'd really like to wait until I have those records from the Boulder County Animal Control Office and the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Because, listen, if he's lying on a public live stream that he was swatted and the Boulder County Sheriff's Office confirms that that never happened, and he's also lying claiming that me, Steve Cambion, is being investigated for filing false claims or false reports about his dog. The Boulder County, these records are going to confirm or deny everything that he's saying. But here's what I predict. He's going to throw them under the bus. If these records come back and show that he was not swatted and that I was not being investigated or possibly being arrested, he's going to throw them under the bus and say the deep state got to them or the men in black. He's going to make up another lie to cover his previous lies, because that's what a pathological liar, if you catch them lying, they just lie more. They never admit it, right? Admiral Rascal says, what you should do is have a cop buddy to let them know about your live streams. Yeah, I mean, yes, better be careful with his PP superpowers. He may pop your head like Scanners. Scanners. I loved Scanner movies. Did you know there's like 4 or 5 of them? And then there was a Scanners TV show that's little known, even to Scanners fans, but I have them all. I loved Scanners. It was great movies. They got worse and worse as they went, but Aliens Are Sus says, banana sandwiches, dead dogs, and lawsuits, only in the wacky world of lawsuits. Yes. I'm going to steal that title. I think that's a good title for a wacky world of Wilcock episode. So got to remember that. Banana sandwiches, dead dogs, and lawsuits, only in the wacky world of Wilcock, right? Yes, and his fans will buy the Men in Black hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, and yeah, it's one thing if he accused you of all these things in private. Yeah, he accused me of all those things publicly, right? I'm sure we only have part of Wilcock's history. He didn't just pop out of nowhere. Yeah. Well, you know, he is the most important person on earth, and the Alliance is directly communicating with him, and he's linked directly to Donald Trump, who he saved from assassination with his superpowers, and he's communicating with the Archangel Michael. He's communicating with a demonic entity if he's communicating with anything, because his prophecies and predictions are always wrong. An angel would not deceive someone, but a devil or demon would. Have you ever done a show regarding researching Havana syndrome, targeted energy weapons, or gang stalking? No, and not about targeted individuals either. It's kind of on my list of things to do, but it's kind of a hot topic, like a hot button topic, I should say. People are very passionate, and no matter what conclusions I come to, half the audience is going to be pissed. So I've kind of punted that one for a while, but I'm hopeful that I will get to that one sooner rather than later. So, well, friends, for tonight, we have reached the end of our journey. We've done our due diligence. I really am going to look more into these Dogman sightings in Pennsylvania, and I'll bring you an update and let you know what I find, especially since there's so many of these sightings that are 10 or 20 miles from my house. I feel obligated. Like I'm the guy with the show with the weird stuff. If there's weird stuff going on 10 miles from me, I should go out there and talk to some people and try to get more information. And I'd be happy to do that. And I'll be sharing it with you and with Lon Stricker, since he's the one who, provided me the leads for where to go, who to talk to, and where the sightings are. It's always an interesting conversation with Lon. You know how skeptical I am, but I do think that majorly he's one of the good guys. He's just intensely interested in this, and he keeps digging in and getting the sighting reports and investigating. He's got a whole team of people that are doing it with him. And we see some parallels. Like I got so far deep down the rabbit hole of UFOs because I saw something myself. And similarly, he said he saw some things, and that's what got him down the rabbit hole. So like many people in this sort of strange subculture, it's a personal experience which becomes the catalyst for their curiosity. And I've been down this rabbit hole for far too long now. Unfortunately, coming to this community looking for the truth about UFOs is a bad idea, because all you find is con artists, scammers, shady hoaxers, and those are just the good guys. But there are some good people here as well, and I try to remind myself that. So what else can I say, friends? That's all I got for you. But I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No place I'd rather be, and I hope you'll be here with me. Again, I will be here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.
And all you have to do is watch some of my shows. I'm not going to keep proving it every week, but you can get the books. We have a great discount code, actualization. You get the whole course for $156 off. It only comes in at $177. And so, you know, your support of this at thedisclosure.com really helps me, because again, until we get funded, I've been scraping by, just barely surviving. So, you know, I do make about maybe 10 grand a month on this, but that includes all the super chats and all the ads and everything. So it's not really enough,